Well, there's nothing that goes better with football than beer, and we're excited to have Golden Road Brewing as one of our newest sponsors for the show. Founded in 2011, Golden Road is Los Angeles' largest craft brewery with brew pub locations across California.
Golden Road is excited to celebrate the Kansas City Chiefs with its partnership beer, Kingdom Blonde Ale. Kingdom Blonde is available at local retailers and in the Chiefs Stadium during regular seasons.
Golden Road's year-round offerings include Mango Cart Wheat Ale, Wolf Pup IPA, and Fruit Cart Hard Seltzer. Golden Road brewers are constantly experimenting with the freshest ingredients to keep fans' taste buds happy with a collection of rotating seasonals, creative flavors, and classic craft brews.
Pick up a case of Golden Road beer at your local store to enjoy before the next game. Visit goldenroad.la/beerfinder to buy Golden Road beer now.
This is your Olympic hero and former WWE champion, Kurt Angle. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my guys, Clint and Noah. When it comes to covering sports, there is no one better. And believe me, that's true. It's damn true.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1%.
The elite. Best of the best.
You are now listening to the Elite Sports Podcast, brought to you by Vermeil Wines and powered by GASN Sports, the pinnacle of hard-hitting sports talk, featuring weekly expert analysis and top-notch interviews. And now, please welcome your hosts, Noah Gronniger and Clint Switzer.
Welcome to a very special birthday edition of the Elite Sports Podcast. Clint Switzer alongside my partner, Noah Gronniger. Noah, it is your birthday here coming up, and let me just tell you, this is my favorite time of year because it's that very crucial time where you catch up with me in age. I'm 10 months older than you, and for these 2 blessed months, we are the same age. So when people are like, how old are you guys? Instead of being like 36 and 35, we're just like, we're 36. I mean, we're practically the same person anyway. We should be the same age. Happy birthday. And here we are, both 36, balding and, aging gracefully.
Yes, gracefully indeed, minus the hair. I'm looking into hair transplants for a birthday gift. So we're going to see how that goes. But yes, these 2 blessed months, we're both 36. So whenever anybody comes and asks us just, all right, hey, what's going on, guys? How old are you? What are we looking at for this show? I mean, am I going to be on with 2 teenagers? Like, we're both 36. And man, what a time it is. We've got the Christmas season. Christmas is next week, 1 week away. So I always get gypped out of presents because they just lump them all into one day instead of getting a bunch of presents on my birthday and Christmas. They just lump them all together. So I'm sure there's about 5 presents a year that I'm missing out on. Bummer for me. But man, we've got this Chiefs team rolling here, and we've got a big game this weekend against the New Orleans Saints. And is it going to be Drew Brees, Taysom Hill? I don't know, but we have a great guest. Tell them about it, Clint.
Yes, sir. We're going to be bringing on one of my favorite kick returners of all time. In fact, Tyrone Hughes played for the New Orleans Saints from 1993 to 1996. He played college football at Nebraska. In fact, Noah, crazy enough, Tyrone, he has the NFL record for most kick return yards in a single game with 304, and the most combined kickoff and punt return yards in the game, 347. Now, he also had an interception in that game playing defensive back for the New Orleans Saints. And I remember the Chiefs going into New Orleans in 1994, first game of the year into the Superdome, Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, Derek Thomas, and beating the Saints and being really afraid of that return game that they had with Tyrone Hughes. Really, he became a member of the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame back in 2015, and it's going to be great to catch up with him. So we're going to be previewing Chiefs Saints coming up here, but we got a lot going on. The NFL is 3 weeks away from being done. College football, there's still games this weekend, championship games and makeup games. We're going to get into that and how this college football season just hasn't felt right from the get-go, and we're going to get some proof of that with our good friend Mike Leach, the head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We pulled some audio from him from the SEC media portal this week where he talked about the season and just kind of how crazy it's been and how you can't get really anything going.
I think the thing that's a drag and that's a drain is the stop and start, okay? These guys are playing, these guys aren't. You're going to play. Oops, no, now you're not going to play. Okay, we're not playing them this year. Oh, well, no, we're going to play them in 2 weeks instead. Okay, the season ends now. No, it doesn't. It ends now. Okay, And then, okay, recruiting. What can you do? Well, you can do this. You can't do that. Well, you can do this instead. Well, you can do that, but not this. Okay. And then, okay, are we going to go ahead and have signing day when it is? Yes, we are. Well, maybe we're not. Yeah, we probably are. Yes, we are. Okay. Okay. Are we practicing today? Oh, I don't know. Okay, so this many guys were positive. Oh, okay, who are the contact tracers? We got to track that down. Okay, well, how many O-linemen do we have? Okay, well, who's going to play guard? Okay, now, do we have enough corners? Well, I don't know. Well, this guy, he played a little corner in high school. And then, okay, what time does this start? Well, I don't know. They're going to change that. Okay, now there's a procedure for this. We're going to test this many times a week. No, it's going to be that many. Okay, and so contact tracers are out this long? Okay, no, they're out that long. Okay, what constitutes a contact tracer? And then in the back of that, you're wondering, okay, well, the NFL does it one way, we do it another. Okay, and then, it's just the stop and start and just the incessant change, adjustment. It's, you guys are dealing with it yourselves. I mean, I see you all sitting in these rooms, and some of you look a little more cheerful than others, and some tried to look cheerful, but you're kind of gloomy because you're stuck in there. And then, and so then, we're sitting here, doing it like this and pretending it's all for real. And this is just like a regular press conference. Yeah, this is such a brilliant idea. Let's do it like this all the time. I mean, everybody's been through this, and the determination. We got some problems we have to deal with. And then, anytime you get committees involved in something, it's going to be convoluted, twisted up, and then the politicians are trying to beat their chest and maximize on this at every step. And in the end, together with all the commotion and clutter, we've created one of the most joyless seasons on earth. And hopefully we have the presence of mind to not repeat it this way again.
But props to the SEC. After this weekend, I think they're going to have had something like 88% of games played. Whereas other conferences, you got teams playing 4 and 5 games. Michigan just calling it a season, saying we stink, just no more games, COVID. The SEC has managed to do it and be the front runners like they always are. And we even got Mississippi State versus Missouri this weekend. What a treat. It's extra football, free football, Noah. I'm up for it.
Oh, I'm always up for it. Unfortunately, you've got the Michigans out there, the K-States that are not up for it. They're calling it a day. Jim Harbaugh, I believe, just signed the number 12 recruiting class, if I'm not mistaken on that, with the number 2 pocket passer quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. So we're going to see if maybe Jim Harbaugh can stick at Michigan, if he's finally found his quarterback. Shea Patterson wasn't it. Maybe this J.J. McCarthy is it. Maybe he can get things on the right track. He's going to need to, or he's going to lose his job. But, man, I am so excited for the SEC. Like you said, 88% of their games played. We've got more games still going on when usually the season would be over by now. We've got more games to play, and, man, I am pumped for all of it.
Yeah, getting a late season game like, Missouri and Mississippi State are going to play, and there's no implications. But I think these are coaches and these are teams, these are 2 first-year coaches trying to get better, trying to grow their programs. Missouri's going to go on to a bowl game. Eli Drinkwitz has already said, hey, we're gearing up for a bowl. We want to play. Our guys want to keep going. They want to build on this momentum that they've created. And what momentum? Talking about the 20th ranked recruiting class, their top class in over a decade for Eli Drinkwitz. 1 year at Missouri already kind of changed the culture there. I know that's a cliched term, but Missouri's 5-4, looking to get to 6-4 with the win and hoping to get a decent bowl game going to maybe the Outback Bowl, maybe the Citrus Bowl there in Florida. So for Missouri to get an extra chance, an extra game against Mississippi State, I'm all for it. In fact, I'm so OCD seeing teams with these weird, uneven records. I can't even handle that. Like, okay, at least the SEC, we're getting 10, and you could say 8-2, 6-4, 9-1, 10-0 if you're Alabama. These other leagues, it's like, well, Nebraska was 2-5. I can't stand that. And that's why it's going to be hard for me for when the NFL goes to 17 games, Noah, because no more calculating records 11-5, 12-4. Now it's 12-5, 13-4. Oh,
9-8, like
not
8-9, like
my friend.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to handle it either. That's just so confusing. But they said, I think they're going to put off the 17 games talk until later on in 2021. So maybe we can push that back. I don't know if it's going to be implemented to start the 2021 season or not, but we know that we do have these 7 playoff teams for each conference. That's going through. Only one team gets the bye, and man, the Steelers have lost 2 in a row. The Chiefs are sitting in the 1 seed right now. They control their own destiny, and it starts this weekend against the New Orleans Saints. That's going to be a tough game. We're still kind of in limbo. Is it Taysom Hill? Is it Drew Brees? We're not sure. I think it's going to be Taysom Hill. I think, Drew Brees is going to want to play the game. Sean Payton's going to put the brakes on it and be careful. They've got their long goals in the playoffs and making the Super Bowl to think about, so they're not going to put him at risk. And so I think the Chiefs are going to find a way to win it, but it's not going to be easy down there in the Superdome with Taysom Hill and that defense that can get after you.
Yeah, for Drew Brees, the key terminology is going to be full range of motion. They want to have a full range of motion in that throw where you don't have the ribs affected, you don't have pain in the abdomen. That's going to be kind of the key, and that's going to be what dictates this going forward. Either way, I think this is a game the Chiefs should win. The Chiefs are favored on the road against a 10-3 team. That's what that's what people think of this Chiefs team, despite the fact that their last 5 games they've won by a combined 19 points. Now, we're going to see with these last 3 if they can get back on track, keep touchdowns on the board that they're putting on the board that are coming off the board, either by penalty, not realizing they have a touchdown, or turnover. This Chiefs team has to get better in the red zone, converting touchdowns and keeping the foot on the throat. So let's go ahead and preview this game right after this with our good friend, Tyrone Hughes, former New Orleans Saints great. Guys, we have so much still to come here on the Elite Sports Podcast, but we want to take this time to tell you about our new sponsor, 500 Level. 500 Level is the ultimate sports apparel and fan gear store, and they feature ultra-comfortable custom t-shirts for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and even WWE. I just got a Macho Man Randy Savage shirt from 500 Level that has been a conversation starter everywhere I go. 500 Level was created because they decided it was time to create an apparel company that put the fans right in the mix, instead of having to outfit themselves with the same old gear from major corporations. 500level.com works with exceptionally talented artists, designers, and diehard sports fans to create unique t-shirt designs for fans to wear with pride. I mean, here in Kansas City, it's time to defend that Lombardi trophy. So stock up in 500 Level's unbelievable inventory of never-before-seen designs for players like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or even rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You literally can't find that anywhere else. Use promo code KansasCity20 today for 20% off your order at 500level.com. That's promo code KansasCity20 for 20% off only at 500level.com. Well, it is our pleasure to welcome Tyrone Hughes to the Elite Sports Podcast. Tyrone, welcome, man. How's everything been going? I know this has been a crazy football season. Have you been catching up like normal? Have you been watching? Have you been invested? Or has this just been kind of weird with everything that's been going on?
You don't know when they're going to play nowadays. I mean, you have so many cancellations and then reschedules, and you know, you might have a Tuesday game or a Wednesday game, and it's like, wow, okay, you know, what's going on? But of course, I mean, I felt they shouldn't even had a season, high school, college, or NFL. But of course, you know, and you can't say really. I think on the college level, it was probably more about the money, but they're not really making money. Obviously, because you don't have the fans in the stands, but the television revenue is still there for a lot of them as well. But on the high school level, I mean, there's just so many changes. I just heard Michigan, the state of Michigan canceled the rest of their season. Here in Louisiana, you know, if a team gets in the playoff and somebody comes down with COVID, then they automatically forfeit. So, I mean, I think it's just too many. They were able to have a season, but it was just too off and on, too many cancellations. Some teams played 8 games. Some teams might have played 5 or 6 games. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah. Definitely agree there. It was, it has been, and I think Mike Leach just talked about that. We had that clip early in our podcast, Mike Leach talking about, from Mississippi State, talking about how this has just been the most joyless season in a long time. But one team, it's not been completely joyless for, is the New Orleans Saints, getting set to host the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend, man. The Saints, Drew Brees, will he be back or will he not be back? I mean, that's kind of the question right now. How do you feel like the Saints have done kind of staying the course with Taysom Hill at quarterback and kind of keeping this thing going? They lost the 1 seed after losing last week, but how do you feel about the Saints kind of going forward here with 3 games to go?
Well, I still hope that Drew doesn't play until maybe that last game of the season. And that, I mean, they're in the playoffs. So, I mean, and I don't see, now that they've lost, to Philly and lost that first seed. I don't see Green Bay losing it, but of course, again, you still got to play the game. So, but I still don't think we need Drew until we actually get into the playoffs. So I think he shouldn't come back. My belief, at least, is he shouldn't come back until possibly that last game to make sure that he's completely healed. Because I'm pretty sure, I know if I'm a player out there and I know he had rib issues or whatever, every time I go to hit him, I'm trying to hit him in those ribs just to make sure. Again, you don't never want to try to intentionally end somebody's career, but if you can put out a starting quarterback of a team, then that's a plus for your team.
Absolutely. But I mean, just the competitor and the future Hall of Famer that Drew is, how bad do you think he wants to play against a Mahomes, a young gun who's widely considered the best in the game right now? Is this maybe his one and only chance to face Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's still a team. Everybody always saying it's the quarterbacks going against the quarterbacks, when in actuality it's the team going against the team. Obviously, the quarterbacks get all of the criticism and all of the accolades, but it's basically still dependent upon the team, regardless of what the quarterbacks do.
Yeah, completely. When you see a guy like Patrick Mahomes play here, and we're in Kansas City, we've seen his maturation and him kind of come out of the gate there in 2018 and throwing for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, winning Super Bowl MVP, and kind of seeing what he is today. As a former defensive back, when you watch this guy play, what do you see out of him? What do you see out of his game that makes him so dynamic and so dangerous?
Well, I kind of look at him like Aaron Rodgers. He has such a strong arm that he can buy time for himself, even on a blitz with his legs, whether that's backpedaling and still throwing the ball 40, 50 yards down the field, or just getting out of the pocket using his legs and creating some time for himself to find a lot of the guys down the field. But again, as a team, they have a lot of weapons. You got a tight end in Kelsey, you got Tyreek Hill, you got two other receivers. Offensively, you can't just cover one. You can't double one guy. You have to basically be able to play everybody. They make you play them straight up. And then you have, which has really been surprising, the running game that they have with Edwards-Helaire. He's doing a fantastic job. So, they're hitting on all cylinders. So, obviously just as a team, as a young team, they're hard to stop right now.
Yeah, they are. But how do you think the Saints are going to go about this? They've got Cameron Jordan, Hendricks at the edge that can create pressure, and then they've got those two great corners on the outside, Jack Rabbit, Janoris Jenkins, always going to take a chance here and there to make a big play, and Marcus Lattimore on the other side. How do you think they're going to attack this Chiefs offense?
I don't know, because, again, where do you attack? And that's the one thing about the Chiefs is that if you apply pressure on Mahomes, that means you're putting your receivers in one-on-one situations, which I think they have some good corners to be able to do it, but who's going to cover Tyreek Hill because of all of the speed? Again, you have Patrick Mahomes who can get out of those blitz situations with his legs, and one of the problems we saw last week was them not being able to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, and he really killed them in that situation where that's the type of guy, you want him to stay in the pocket and be able to just try to pick you apart as a passer. Same thing with Mahomes, keep him in the pocket, make him pick you apart as a passer, which he has been able to do. So he's not just a running quarterback. He is learning and has developed into a great quarterback with a lot of experience, with not as much experience as some of these older quarterbacks. So he still has a lot to learn.
Well, Tyrone, I got to know the story here because you're a New Orleans guy. You get drafted by the Saints in the 5th round in 1993, but before that, you go play college football at Nebraska for Tom Osborne, man. How did that happen? How did you make it to Lincoln, Nebraska?
Actually, that was kind of it was funny because obviously my final two picks came down to Nebraska and LSU, and having. My mom wanted me to go because she met Tom Osborne, thought he was a great guy, what have you. My dad wanted me to go to LSU with him because of all it, me being home and then the people he worked with at the time. So it actually just came down to, where I felt comfortable, and even today, I tell guys, every college can do the same thing educationally, but it's when you coming down to making a decision, whether it's football, trying to pick a football school, or even when you're getting ready to pick an agent. All of the agents can basically do the same thing. Some may get you more incentives or what have you, but it basically comes down to who you feel comfortable with, who do you feel is being honest with you. And I think that's one of the keys as being a great recruiter. And I tell people all the time, it wasn't Tom Osborne and it wasn't my receiver coach, Ron Brown, that actually got me to come to Nebraska. It was Jack Pierce, who was an excellent recruiter that they had at that time. He's no longer there. But, I mean, Jack was the guy. He can come into the hood as a white guy, you know, and Nebraska on, sell Nebraska to you, you know, and that was the key. And so I think, you know, that's where a lot of these coaches these days, you know, they got to really get out and get to these homes and get to these families and impress these parents, as opposed to just looking at, you know, stars and or stats. You know, it's actually getting out and getting to know these families. And I think that was one of the biggest things that really impressed my mom and impressed me, is that, like I said, I mean, and they brought us up to Nebraska, and that was my first time being in the snow. They brought us up for their bowl practice, where they were indoors. So there's snow all on the ground or whatever. It's freezing cold, but they're practicing in this indoor facility right before one of their bowl games, right before Christmas. And, you know, we had an excellent time, enjoyed it or what have you. So we really knew what to expect and where we were going.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, just that you would go there, the snow, but the great recruiter that came there and talked you into being a Nebraska Cornhusker, and some great years you had there. But going into your time in New Orleans, I don't know how many people know this, Tyrone, that you hold 2 NFL records, 304 kick return yards in a single game, and 347, the most combined return yards in a single game. I mean, what do those mean to you today? And it doesn't look like those are going to be beat anytime soon, with just the way the game has changed and how they're kind of getting the kickoff out of the game.
Well, and that's one of the disappointing things, is just the fact that how they've taken the kickoff out of the game. The punt return is still there, but I mean, you don't see too many guys excelling at it anymore like they used to. But I mean, that was a tough game, because not only was that a record-setting day for me as a return man, but it was also my first actual start as a corner in that particular game. And I had my first interception, and I ended up getting my first touchdown scored on me. So I got my cherry popped all kind of ways that day.
Well, it was memorable for sure. And, you know, you talked about that. Noah kind of touched on it with his last question, but you see today where it seems like, you know, the kick return has kind of been taken out. They, you know, you can, in the college game, you can call fair catch, even in the field of play, get the ball at the 25. The incentive is there to just let the ball go out of the end zone, take it to the 25. But even punt returns, it seems like there's no incentive to return a punt anymore when you've got, you know, at least 50% of plays end in a block in the back or a holding call. There's really only bad things that can happen, it seems like, on punt returns. I mean, how do you feel like the future kind of is when it comes to the return game? Or are we literally moving it towards no returns at all in the game of football?
Well, I think with the good teams that you see that doesn't have that are the teams that actually put the time into it. I mean, you got to spend more than just a couple of minutes at practice on your special teams. You know, everybody puts a lot of emphasis, obviously, on the punt side of the ball, meaning the punt coverage, you know, because that's the thing that most likely can change the game for you. So you need to make sure you're blocking well, the punter's getting the ball off, the timing and everything, you're getting down the field covering. On the return side, though, you still have to put that same amount of time and emphasis on it. But one of the biggest keys is being able to teach these guys how to block on punt and kickoff returns, because the way, especially in the NFL, the way they're kicking the ball off now, I mean, I would have a field day returning the ball the way these guys are, as far as their alignment, them not the kickoff team not having the ability to run down or have a running start. So, I mean, I would have a field day with a lot of these returns, the way they're returning the ball now. But, you know, like you're saying, it depends on who your returner is, what you're looking to get out of it. I mean, I think it's a lack of knowledge on a lot of these coaches' part of not knowing how to teach blocking on the punt and kickoff returns, and also timing and distance is the biggest thing as it pertains to a returner.
Absolutely, it is. You see that all the time, whether they outkick their coverage or just enough to give the guys the time to get down there. But we got to talk about your old ball coach, Jim Mora. He didn't let you play receiver on that team. I mean, and in his own words, you guys couldn't do diddly poo on offense. So I mean, how do you feel like being allowed to play receiver could have impacted your career or even that offense at the time, that Saints offense that could have used your speed in the slot? You already had Quinn Early and Michael Haynes out there. I feel like they could have used you.
I mean, I think I could have, and also I think that a lot of the news media felt the same way. But you know, I mean, and what was crazy is I got drafted as a defensive back, but I had been a receiver since playground. You know, I played defensive in Nebraska because my junior year I broke my wrist in a game against Colorado, and so I think the last game of the year they ended up cutting the cast from above my elbow to below my elbow, so I was at least able to bend my arm. So Coach Osborne put me back there against Oklahoma to do the kickoff returns, but I didn't do any punt returns because obviously if I dropped it, it was kind of hard to catch it with a cast on. But I still had the cast on, caught the ball, whatever, in the Oklahoma game. And so going into our bowl game, I'm like, look, I don't want to be sitting on no bench. So I went and talked to our defensive back coach, you know, and at the time we were playing against, going to be playing against Miami when they had Horace Copeland, Lamar Thomas, two guys over 6 feet, 7 foot high jumpers. And then you had Kevin Williams, who was probably like one of the fastest guys in college at the time. So my thought process was, hey, look, coach, look, I'm one of the fastest guys on our team here at Nebraska. Let me come over and play on the defensive side of the ball. And it took some time or whatever, but Coach Osborne, the defensive coach, was all for it. But Coach Osborne decided to allow me to do it. And I did an okay job, you know, against those guys or whatever. I mean, I was mostly press man against Kevin Williams because I'm like, I don't know too much. I understood coverage, obviously, as a receiver and what the responsibilities was, but my technique was not there at all. So going into my senior year in the spring, I went to Coach Osborne and asked him, you know, hey, let me go both ways. And so he looked at me like I was crazy. And when that's going into the fall, my senior year, it became, you know, the whole Big Eight, you know, at the time, you know, everybody was all about the option, us in Oklahoma, Colorado. But at that time, my senior year in 92, Kansas State, Oklahoma, everybody got away from the option and started throwing the ball. And so now it's like, well, hey, we need more cornerbacks. And so they came to me and was like, well, Ty, we need you to play on the defensive side of the ball. So there were actually 5 games that or 4 games my senior year, counting that bowl game in my junior year, but 4 games my senior year that I actually played both ways. And so going into the draft, it became a question of, well, where do we draft? And I'm like, what do you mean, where do you draft me? I've been a receiver my entire career. I played 4 games as a defensive back, and now you don't know where to draft me? And so I ended up going to getting drafted to the Saints hometown team, which I knew they definitely needed a punt and kick returner at the time. So that was my deal with them. But they drafted me as a defensive back. So that was where I actually learned. I was actually learning where most guys came in knowing. I was still actually learning how to become a defensive back. But I had the knowledge of the game and the understanding to where I ended up by my 4th year with the Saints. I ended up playing just about every position in the secondary, from nickel, dime, corner, and safety, because I ended up playing safety in certain packages. When Carolina first came into the league, they started going with a 3 wide receiver, 2 running back set. And so in order for us to cover that 3rd receiver, they put me in as a safety to where our corners could stay out there and cover the receivers, but we still had some run blitzes and things of that nature that we could still run. So basically, we didn't play a nickel defense. They actually put me in as a safety. I played literally strong safety, but I was actually covering a receiver. And so the media at one point was like, well, hey, look, y'all have Tyrone. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. Y'all don't have any speed over there other than, you know, that was before Michael Haynes came, and saying, hey, look, you know, why don't y'all try him? And then the question was, or the word was from Jim Moore, well, hey, he's not that great of a, you know, we don't think he can catch that well. And so my thought process is, well, why am I your starting punt and kick returner? You know, if I drop a pass, it's incomplete. If I drop a kickoff or a punt, that's a fumble.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Tyrone, I tell you, the Chiefs and Saints, let's just face it, they don't play that often, but you did get to play against the Chiefs one time, and your 2nd year in the league, the first game of the season. Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, and the Chiefs come to the Superdome there in New Orleans, and it's a Chiefs victory. But, man, I remember going into that game being so fearful of you as a returner and those linebackers, Sam Mills and Ronaldo Turnbull specifically. Man, those those Saints teams were kind of scary down there, and you guys had some decent teams that were very close to the playoffs. But just wanted to see if you remembered anything about that Chiefs game with Marty and Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, and Derek Thomas coming in there to the Superdome.
No, I really don't remember the game, but I will tell you what I do remember is the practices, because we did practice against the Chiefs when we would go to Wisconsin for training camp. Remember, we were in La Crosse, and I think they were in
River Falls.
River Falls, because Chicago it was like everybody was going to Wisconsin around that time. You know, Platteville had Chicago went to Platteville. I think you had the Vikings in a certain area or wherever as well. Mankato, I think it was. And then you had the Chiefs were up there, River Falls. So we went up there to scrimmage them several times during training camp. And one of the things was our defensive back coach, Jim Moore Jr. at the time, did not get along with the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver coach, and I couldn't remember who it was back then. But they had big beef. And so the Chiefs, just like us at Nebraska, you know, the receivers at Nebraska, the reason why the game went so well was because we used to cut block. Well, typically in the NFL, you don't do that, or you don't expect the receivers to do that. But at Kansas City, they did. And so every time they would come out and try to cut block us as corners, we would try to kick them, hit them, beat them, whatever. So we stayed, and again, this was us on our scout players. It wasn't the starters, because whenever you guys were on, Kansas City was on the offense, we had our scout team in there. So we would always end up getting into fights with the receivers. And so Big Jim was like, look, if y'all get into another fight, I'm kicking y'all off the field. So it was myself, another guy, J.J. McCleskey, Shane Parkour, Israel Bird, and Othello Henderson. We all came in as rookies, and we called ourselves the Posse. And so we looking at him like, what? Another fight? You going to kick us off the field? So that means we ain't got to practice? Okay. So, of course, you know, the next guy that tried to cut somebody, we all ended up getting into a fight, and he kicked us off the field. But Jim Moore Jr. was like, hey, great job.
Well, here's another thing that people may not know, Tyrone. They should. I mean, in 2015, you get a call and you're a Saints Hall of Famer. Just what was that like, getting that call, knowing that, and just the ceremony, the celebration of you as a New Orleans Saints player, your career there. And you, like you said, that's in your hometown. That's New Orleans. You grew up there. You played pro football there, and you are a Saints Hall of Famer. What was that like for you?
One, it was totally unexpected, but then two, I cried like a baby. I'm not gonna even lie, because Ken Trahan, who's a big guy over our Saints Hall of Fame, he was the one who actually called me, and he was like, "Hey Ty, congratulations, you've been voted into the Saints Hall of Fame, well deserved, blah blah blah." So I mean, I just lit it because I'm trying to process it, and then I just, you know, tears just started coming to my eyes, like, "Are you serious?" You know, and so. Just that the fact that it's my home and the home team was great, you know, and I'm still trying to get Sean and Mickey Loomis, because again, I didn't really understand a lot of this stuff after I got finished playing, but I learned later that the last team that you played with is technically the last team that they have you as being retired from. So then I understood why guys would be coming back to certain teams doing these one-day contracts or what have you, to say, okay, this is the team that I want to retire from or what have you, or be listed as being retired from. So I've sent emails or what have you to Sean and Mickey to ask them to see if that could be that guy, you know, hey, can I get that one-day contract or whatever to say, you know, I want to be retired as a Saints player, but it hasn't happened. So hopefully one day it will, and that would make it, you know, basically come full circle.
Yeah, I mean, we hope that for you as totally. And just one quick question here. I mean, have you ever seen anything, any sort of human like a Willie Roaf? And just the second part of this, did you ever have any run-ins with him in practice? Was there ever a corner blitz, Willie Roaf peels off, and you're laid flat out on the ground?
I'll tell you this. Willie and I are really good friends. whenever he comes to town, we'll talk, we'll hang out. Talk to his wife every once in a while. She had called me to actually do a video for his 50th birthday to say happy birthday or what have you. We came in together. I went to the Pro Bowl my rookie year, and I think that was the only year that he did not go to the Pro Bowl, was 1993. So Willie is an amazing guy, but another guy that I played with that ended up in the Hall of Fame also that was on that same team was Will Shields. Played with Will at Nebraska. And but Willie was a great player. He came in, he did what he was supposed to do, he worked hard, and to say as big as he was, he had some great feet.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best to ever do it for sure. Well, Tyrone, before we let you go, we got to hit you with our first and goal, which is going to be 4 quick questions, and you give us whatever comes to mind, and we'll try to get to the goal line here with these 4 questions, man, if you're ready.
All righty.
Okay, number 1, tough one here. We're going to start off with a little intense, but Scott Frost, is he the answer at Nebraska? Does he make it long-term there?
He's already long-term with the contract that he has, so I don't see them giving him any, because I think they went from 5 to 7, and he's there. So I think they should keep him, give him a chance, because I think if anybody knows football, they knew what he came in with. And the guys, when we went to his first spring game, we had about 300 former players that went back to the spring game just to watch that spring game and see how he coached. But I think the biggest issue were when we looked at the offensive line at the time, we're like, there's no way possible they're going to be able to compete in the Big Ten. So I think he started after that trying to recruit one, bigger lineman, first of all, and better players. But it's kind of like a catch-22 now in college football, because you need good players in order to win, but you have to win in order to get the good players. And so when you don't have those good players, you have to have a coaching staff who can develop those players you have and turn them into winners. And I think that's where he's kind of failing in the sense of his coaching staff. Scott has a lot of knowledge, but I don't think the coaches on his staff has that same knowledge in order to develop kids to be these winners or these 5-star athletes.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're going to have to do something there. We need Nebraska to be good again. That's good for college football. But our second and goal question here, favorite return guys of all time. I mean, whatever your list is, you don't have to put them in any necessary order. But, I mean, there's Deion, Darrell Green. I mean, we've had several here, Dante Hall and Tamarick Vanover, Devin Hester. There's so many.
Exactly. So I would start off with Deion Sanders and Darrell Green, Mel Gray. Yes. The kid, what's his name? The kid from Devin Hester. Willis Brooks played at Green Bay. He's on TV now, one of the commentators.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? The guy Brooks, last name Brooks.
Robert Brooks?
Not Robert Brooks. Robert Brooks. He was one, but not Robert Brooks. But then I'm also thinking of the other guy on College Game Day, played at Michigan.
Oh, Desmond Howard.
Yeah.
Desmond Howard. Brian Mitchell played with the Eagles and the Washington Redskins. So I mean, you had a lot of guys that were great returners that were out there back around the time that I played and even before me. So I mean, that list can go exponentially to infinity.
Dave,
absolutely. Question 3. This is a lighthearted one. Let's have some fun here. What is your favorite all-time Christmas movie?
Oh, favorite all-time Christmas movie. Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go back to probably Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and what's the other one with the two fraud? It was Heat Miser and Cold Miser. I think that might have just been Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, those classics, those classic claymations, Frosty and Rudolph. You can't beat those. That's amazing.
You can't beat those.
We got to punch it into the end zone here. 4th and goal question. And I'm going to go way back to your playing days. A video game came out, a Super Nintendo game. It was called Tecmo Super Bowl 3. And my question to you is, do you know how dominant you were as a return man in that game? I mean, that was really the only reason to be the Saints in that game, was because you had Tyrone Hughes returning kickoffs and punts.
Actually, no, I don't remember. The only Tecmo I remember is the original Tecmo, where you had the LT or Banks, who would just come down the line and tackle everybody. Everybody would always get the New York Giants on Tecmo. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it might have been the first Madden game, and I want to say that might have been, 95 or 96, EA Sports or somebody came, and I knew I was on as far as one of the top guys agility-wise. I had some great agility and speed on those games.
Yes, very memorable indeed. Tyrone, it has just been a true pleasure having you on, man. Thank you so much. We'll enjoy the Chiefs and Saints this weekend. Have a wonderful holiday season, my friend. Enjoy all the football we can, because hopefully next year we'll get things a little bit back to normal. We'll be able to talk about, fans and stands and more normal things next year, man. Let's try to make that happen.
And I want to give a shout out to Tyrone Matthew, because he is a St. Augustine Purple Knight, which is the same high school I went to.
There we go.
He's doing an excellent job.
We love the Honey
and
Badger,
maybe we can
man.
get you back on in February,
Also,
talking a little Chiefs Saints Super Bowl.
And also I would love that. And also to my cousin Eric Bieniemy over there on the sideline too. One day he's going to get a head coaching job. And if he's listening to this, Eric, when you do get that coaching job, I just want to come on and just help out, give some information. I don't need to be a coach, but I can give some situational information that would be very helpful.
Well, I tell you, we will hate to lose Eric when he finally does get that job, but we couldn't wish it enough for him. As wonderful things that he's done and a great person he is. We love him. I did not even realize you guys were cousins. That's amazing, man.
We actually found that out, or I actually found that out when we were in college, when he was at Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That's insane. He's so great,
world.
And I hope that he gets the right job for next year, and then maybe someday when Patrick Mahomes is in his late 20s, early 30s, he can come back to Kansas City and keep this thing going here, man. We'd love that.
That'll work. That'll be great. That'll be great.
Tyrone, thank you so much, my friend. Take her easy.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, there you have it with our good friend Tyrone Hughes. Man, that was really cool, taking a trip down memory lane. He was not an avid Tecmo Super Bowl III player as we were, but, he's going back to like Tecmo Super Bowl, the original with, LT and with Bo Jackson being unstoppable, and I'm here for all of it. But you're right. In 3, that was the only reason to be the Saints, was Tyrone Hughes. But I was always a fan of the defense, some of the defensive players. I always liked Sam Mills and Ronaldo Turnbull, the linebackers for the Saints. Those were like my guys. I always had random players I liked on teams, and those were my two from the Saints, and Tyrone Hughes, of course, as well. But the two defensive standouts, and like I always liked weird receivers like O.J. McDuffie, Sean Dawkins, Courtney Hawkins. I have a weird thing. We both do. You're a big Chris Warren guy, from the Seahawks. So
I'm a big Joey Galloway guy. That's not as weird, but I mean the Saints, Quinn Early and Michael Haynes, the receivers, I was really a big fan of them. Eric Allen at corner, I was a big fan of. And then just all the Bengals, I was a huge fan of. Defensive end, John Copeland. Safety, Sam Shade. Those receivers, Carl Pickens, Darnay Scott, Jeff Blake, Corey Dillon, Corey Sawyer at corner. I was just a huge fan of weird teams, weird players for really seemingly no reason. I didn't have a good reason. I watched them. Maybe they made a few plays, and I was just hooked on them and liked them forever. And that was the great thing about being a kid and video games. Playing them in a Nintendo game or a Super Nintendo game, you became a fan of players. That's how you learn the rosters, because they didn't have Sunday NFL Ticket. You couldn't just tune in and watch any team anytime. And the Bengals and Saints and teams like that weren't on TV a lot. So you learn their rosters, learn these players, and became fans of these guys through video games. And that was the cool part of it.
Well, Noah, we've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers bungle the 1 seed. That ball is now in the Chiefs' court. All they have to do is split the games between the Falcons and Saints and beat the Chargers, and they are the 1 seed regardless. I think the chances of that happening are astronomical, whether the Chiefs lose to the Saints or not. And I think the Chiefs are going to go in and beat the Saints. And I think this is going to be really all wrapped up, before week 17. As the Chargers, they play the Bengals coming up, and then they still have to play the Browns and Colts in the final 2. The Chiefs are going to be the 1 seed. This is over. But what do we want to see these last 3 games? The Chiefs last year went on a tear. At this time, they won 6 straight going into the playoffs. They are in the middle of a 7-game winning streak right now. 8, I guess now. 8 wins in a row since losing to the Raiders in week 5. What do we want to see in these last 3 games as the Chiefs start to load up for another championship run?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see this offense not leaving points on the field, whether it's miscommunication or a missed throw, not being able to catch it. That Bucks game, we had a giant 93-yard touchdown, potentially to McCole Hardman. The throw was a little bit behind, so Mahomes blamed himself for that. McCole Hardman blamed himself because he got two hands on it. He should have caught it. Tyreek Hill not knowing that he caught the ball, the guys up in the booth not looking at it and realizing he caught the ball, Andy Reid not just challenging it anyway. I mean, we cannot be leaving these points on the field. We've got to go out. We've got to take advantage of it. We could be blowing teams out. Instead, all these games are close. I want to see the defense come together. I want to see more pressure on the quarterback. I want to see more turnovers. But all in all, they're shutting teams down when they absolutely need to. When they can't allow any more, they need the offense to start clicking and catch up, and they can't allow any more points. They're doing it. That's what we saw at the tail end of last year into the playoffs. Even when we gave up 24 points to the Houston Texans and it was 24-0, then the defense clamped down. They did it in the Titans game. They did it against the Niners in the Super Bowl. When they had to make stops, they did it, and the offense came through in the end. That's what I want to see. We're starting to see it a little bit. I want to see it even more so. And the last thing I want to see is Patrick Mahomes take a hold of this MVP race, because I'm telling you, he's got 5 more 100 yards passing than Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers has 6 more touchdowns, 39 as opposed to Patrick Mahomes 33. He's got 1 less interception, 4 as opposed to 5. So if I'm sitting here right now just looking at those numbers, I know Vegas has Mahomes in the lead right now. I think Aaron Rodgers might be in the lead just looking at those numbers. So I need Patrick Mahomes to go off. No more 1 or 2 touchdown pass games. I need 3s, 4s, 5s, maybe even a 6 in there. I need him to take hold of this. I want this MVP. I want this. I want Patrick Mahomes to be the GOAT by the end of his career. I want him to be the greatest of all time. And this is going to go a huge way to that by winning his 2nd MVP this season. He's right there for it, and he needs to close it out and beat Aaron Rodgers.
If there's an MVP that I give a hoot about, it's going to be Super Bowl MVP in Tampa, Florida in early February. That's where I'm at with it. They can give the MVP to whoever they want. Obviously, you want to see that as the personal accolades continue to mount up. You want Patrick to continue to rack that up as his career goes on, especially after he has signed this unprecedented deal. I mean, he's delivering for the city, and I think that he's going to deliver something for this team and the city once again here this February, and that's the most important thing. But Noah, hope everybody enjoys this weekend of football. It's going to be exciting. We're going to have a lot more coming up. In fact, our Christmas edition of the Elite Sports Podcast next week, do you want to tease? Do you want to let people know who we have coming up next week that's going to be on the show? Do we even want to give people that? Is that fair?
Self high five. Bang!
That's all you need. You need to know that DDP himself, DDP Yoga, Diamond Dallas Page, is coming on this very show next week. Be prepared for it. We cannot wait to speak with DDP about DDP Yoga and some of his tremendous moments in the ring for WCW and otherwise. So thanks so much for joining us here on the Elite Sports Podcast. Back next week, as always. Thank you so much for joining us.